Are they going to show us that God is an ET?
Yeah, I think the Vatican came out, about 3 weeks ago, with an article saying that the extraterrestrial is our brother.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the Mars landing has shown us that it seems that there's at one time there was water for life, and of course this ties into panspermia, which ties into Darwinism, which ties into the idea that somehow life was exploded throughout the galaxy and that we're just an accident. Really? And if there is something that's higher than us or more evolved than us, then these extraterrestrials will show us who they are.
I see.
And that is essentially the alien gospel. That's what alleged abductees are told. That's what Barry Gooding Jr., who I just quoted, he believes in. And obviously Steven Spielberg is running the same thing up the flagpole, if you will. He believes that E.T. started this Mayan religion. And of course, he picks on a religion which is extinct. It's dead. No one's practicing it for. Well, that's not true. Some people are practicing it, but it's not mainstream. So he's not really offending anyone by saying this. Get my point?
Yeah. All right, Mr. Marzulli. Let me ask you then: would then you say that Jesus was an ET? Then that's how he had his power?
No, I say exactly the opposite of that. And the reason for that, and the reason why I hold the Judeo-Christian scriptures above anything else, is because of the prophetic thread that's through them. In other words, all these, including Nostradamus and others of his ilk and Hopi prophecies and other prophecies, they're vague, they're very difficult to discern, and they're open to lots of different interpretations. Where the prophecy that I travel in, for the most part, is very, very, very specific. For instance, I'll just give you one that it talks about in the latter days, in the end times, that the children of Israel would be regathered from the four corners of the earth and reestablished in their ancient homeland, never again to be removed. And we see that in 1947. But before that, we know in AD 70, Titus comes down, destroys the city of Jerusalem, kills over 1 million of its inhabitants, and the rest of the Jews are sold into slavery and scattered throughout the nations. And this continues essentially for about almost 2 millennia, to the point where in and around Jerusalem and Israel proper, there was no latter rain, so that nothing would grow there. Literally, the rain stopped falling. And this, of course, is from a book that I just finished reading, fascinating book by a rabbi in Israel who's has charts and flows and graphs and showing all this. But there were three events that happened in that country which, in a way, prevented people from resettling it. One, horrible earthquakes would plague the country. Two, the latter rain wouldn't fall, so nothing would grow. And three, plagues of locusts would come up and eat anything you tried to grow anyway. So the point being is no one's resettled that land until 1947, and we actually see it before that. We see the Jews coming into it at the turn of the 20th century, and then in 1947 Israel becomes a nation again. This, in my opinion, fulfills this prophecy, which, by the way, is about 2,500 years old. And it begs the question, who or what is outside our space-time continuum that seemingly can tell us the future with great clarity? And I'm not talking, with all due respect to the Nostradamus, the quatrains at best, in my opinion, are somewhat vague, and open to interpretation. Where this says specifically, in the latter days, I will regather you from the four corners of the earth and reestablish you in your homeland. That's very, very specific.
Okay. Let me ask you, Lynn, you've mentioned some of the plagues and the locusts, and you basically said that perhaps aliens are our brothers. Am I getting that right?
Well, no, what I'm quoting is the idea that the Vatican came up about a month ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago,
now,
and said that the extraterrestrial should be regarded as our brother.
Okay. All right. So from the Vatican point of view, though, would you consider them a well of knowledge and spirituality, and would you turn to them for answers?
Well, let's put it this way. Some of them, sure. Some people from the Vatican, I would certainly respect their opinion. But on many things, the fact that this cardinal, I actually have another. Let me just read you something real quick here, okay? This is from a cardinal by the name of Cardinal Tarun. He says, he's talking, for example, that I'm quoting now. For example, I'm going to India next month, and I want to give this message that all religions are equal. Sometimes there are priorities because of particular situations, but we mustn't get the impression that there are first-class religions and second-class religions. Well, for a cardinal to say something like that is really unprecedented as far as I'm concerned. To say that somehow all religions are equal is, in my opinion, insulting, because I don't believe that they are. And without getting into a whole religious war thing here, which I really don't want to get into, but the fact that the cardinal is supposed to be, you would figure a man of his rank would certainly travel in prophecy and in his own scripture, and he would come away with at least the idea that, you know, all religions are unequal, and this is why, because of certain, for instance, the prophecies written in both the Old and New Testament seem that there's no other book, let's say, that's out there that really travels in that kind of clarity with a prophetic thread that's thousands of years old, and we see some of these things coming to pass in our lifetime. So for him to say something like that, in my opinion, is incredibly disingenuous.
Lynn, let me ask you something. What do you think about the sighting there in Texas? The UFO appeared to be some sort of mothership. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I actually spoke to one of the witnesses, Ricky Sorrell, and I've been in touch with him, at least a half a dozen times, and I'm planning and probably to go down there in the not-too-distant future. As of last month, he saw the craft 4 different times, 4 different sightings, one of them with his wife. I think the last sighting he saw it with his wife and his neighbors, so they all saw the thing. Yeah. And F-16s, or something like an F-16, a group of them, 3 or 4 of these things, are chasing this huge mothership. Right. When Sorrell saw this thing, some of the quotes that I actually have him saying, like, all bets are off. He's still trying to figure out how to deal with it. One of the words he used was overwhelming. And he was out, for those of your listeners who don't know the story, he was out deer hunting around the first of the year, this year, 2008, and he gets caught in some briars. And this is in Texas, a little southwest of Dallas. And it's in winter, so there's no leaves on the trees. And he's out there deer hunting, and he gets caught in some brambles. And as he looks up, above him, right above the tree line, is this unbelievable craft. And at first, of course, he's not sure what he's looking at. And he told me as far as he could look, in all directions, all he could see was the underbelly of this thing. Right. Right. And that's really big. That
is
huge.
That is the quintessential mothership, is it not?
Yes, it is. I mean, he estimates 1.5 miles, 2 miles. He didn't even know. He couldn't see the end of the thing. Okay. And then when it kind of rose up and tilted and began to fly away noiselessly, not a sound, and then just disappeared. So I mean, it's unbelievable when you think about it. It's unbelievable.
So why do you think they appeared?
Well, I think it's part of this whole. Let me put it this way. I have a word for it. I call it the acceleration. I think world events are accelerating. I think things are accelerating. I have a story right here which talks about that natural disasters are up 400% in 2 decades. And surely, Daniel, you know, if you and I were talking about this stuff, which is one of the prophecies that talks about wars and rumors and wars, famines, earthquakes in the various places, bizarre things happening on the earth. These are the beginnings of the birth pangs. Other people have pointed this out and said, well, maybe that we're in it. But when you get stats like this from an article that says basically that natural disasters are up 400% in 2 decades. Right. To me, that makes me, look. That's saying something. I mean, that's saying something major. Well, I mean, if it was 50% or even 100%, you'd go, well, maybe it's global warming or whatever you want to tag it to. Right. But 400% in 2 decades, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I noticed that even Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger was taken aback by the lightning storm out there in California. I think what I've read, somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 lightning strikes caused over 800 fires. Is that right?
There are 800 fires. It's unprecedented, and I won't go into what I think. I just won't come on the record with you. Yeah. But all I can tell you is this. I just won't come on the record. But I will say this: that I believe that that's not coincidence. I really do. I believe that something else is going on. It's part of the acceleration. You just don't get phenomena like